Good morning, everyone. First of all, I also want to thank Ian for filming this for us, because he and his company, because that really he does such a great job. So I want to thank, and I want to say hi to everybody out there who's watching us. We have people from all over the world joining us. That's pretty incredible. Too bad you can't join us for the meals here, but that's all I'm saying. I would like to begin with a little moment of prayer. I want to say, these prayers are from my upcoming book, which is not an advertisement for the book, by the way, but it is, I feel like, one of the reasons I did a book on prayer is because I think we need to have a different form of prayer. I think that part of why I want to do holy language entirely is to introduce the idea of the divine as companion, as opposed to the images and the iconic idea that somehow the sacred world is way out there and we're way down here. And that has not been my experience, nor has it been the experience of those who have had an experience of the sacred world. And that if that imagery can be shifted within you, how you would relate to the power of your life, I believe deeply that what would change, the calculations that would change, is that human beings would cease to crave external power, and their understanding of internal power would replace it. That they would stop thinking that if I had more stuff, then everything would be okay. That what would emerge is the idea of, I get it, I share, a rising tide lifts all ships. Now I get the rules. It's not about getting a bigger boat. It's about everybody having a boat. And that I won't lose my boat if someone else has a boat, which is the way mortals do calculations now. And for this, we are all suffering. If you understand the nature of you, that what is in you are the person you're looking at. You are the person you're looking at. How you treat that person is really how you're treating yourself. But I'll get to that. Okay, here we go. So anyway, my prayers are, this is how I talk to God. This is how I talk to God. And I think that if you get that, that's how you just talk. You just dialogue. And that's how heaven dialogues back with you. It's as simple as that. Walk on this earth with the divine. However it is you image that. There is no such thing as a simple act of compassion or an inconsequential act of service, is there, Lord? Everything we do for another person has infinite consequences for that person or for us, and I have figured that out. The light from stars long ago exploded can be seen in the celestial realm and is traveling in some direction with nothing to stop its journey forever. I believe that's the nature of our sacred light. We journey forever. Even after our form implodes from exhaustion, still our light continues. Particles of our light beam sparkle off with every choice we make and every idea we have and every gift of love we share. We are living sparklers, setting off eternal flames, reigniting another person's weakening ability to love or to try again or to get up and walk another foot. There's no such thing as a small spark. And when I hold that image in my head, Lord, my soul is filled with awe. We can so easily do so much for so many, and it takes so very little effort to generate a spark of light from within, and it goes on forever within the soul of another human being. And so much darkness fades away. You can see a spark forever in a dark sky. You've designed this universe to favor the power of light. Of that I have no doubt. And in that I trust. Amen. Every time I do this, I feel like a preacher. And I just have to say, that's uncomfortable for me. Mighty uncomfortable. So there's something about that makes me a podium, makes me feel terribly uncomfortable, but that's over with now. Let's go to teaching. Yesterday we ended with my asking you about God and your image of God. So we're going to go into hardcore holy language now. Nothing's more holy than that, right? So, what do you associate with God? And I want to say that in my teaching for years, what the heck, go away. My teaching for years, here's what I found to be incredibly, incredibly paradoxical. Now figure this, right? This is supposed to be the spiritual era. Agreed? Agreed. So I'm teaching on consciousness, and I mention the word prayer, or now meditation's okay, but the word prayer was not. Buddha was okay, but Jesus was not. And one time, when I said I was going to open up my workshop with a prayer, and not a Catholic prayer. I wasn't going to hit them with the Our Father or something. But, so I was going to, because the reason was, because I was new at the workshop, doing workshops, and so I thought, how do other people open workshops? And I saw that they did a quiet moment or a moment of meditation, but I also saw that everybody just nodded off. So I wasn't about to let anyone nod off. Not on my watch. So I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense to me. So the Western mind always needs to be entertained, so I thought I would just do a prayer. I had about 800 people, and this woman said, I'm not here to pray with such venom. I mean venom, we're talking venom. She was a cobra. And I looked at everybody else, and not one person said, oh, wait a minute here. I mean, this is a workshop on spirituality. It was a workshop actually on health, but health in the body, mind, spirit. Nobody said a thing. So I had post-traumatic prayer syndrome. And I did not bring up prayer ever again. Ever. No more. I thought, wow. That ain't going to happen again. Did not, ever. And then my work so my personal spiritual life was always my business. Never talked about what was going on in my private life. None of the rocking and rolling taking place in my private life. And I just taught about healing. And taught about medical intuition, archetypes, but did not bring mysticism of the deeper ever into my classroom. Did not cross that. Did not say, let's talk about your prayer life. Did not go there, would not go there. That line was so clearly in the sand for me. Even though what happened when I wrote Invisible Acts of Power was this profound experience for me. When I had this idea, I wonder, I began to see us, all the time, my understanding of us grows deeper and more incredible. And when I started out as a medical intuitive, you have to understand I knew nothing about my own craft. So in doing readings, I was learning as much about intuition as about the human energy system, which I knew nothing about. Nobody taught me about chakras, nothing, zero. So for every reading I was doing, I was learning as much about you as I was about the human energy system, as I was about the fact that you could do a reading itself. I was learning as much about doing readings as about why are we able to do readings. I had been dropped into a new universe entirely. And I clung to Norm Shealy like a child, like an orphan to a mentor. People assumed I knew all about intuition, all about that I was a master. I was this novice thinking, I wonder why we have this skill. I wonder why all these people suddenly want to be professional psychics. Why do they claim their grandmothers taught them this? Why are they pulling on that mythology? Why are so many people now wanting to be healers? Why this? That was not the way it was before World War II. Why are so many people now speaking from the inner, which is not the way we spoke before World War II? Nobody said, I'm getting it on the inner, as if that was a place of authenticity. As if you said, I got it from the inner, everybody says, oh, well, in that case. Why don't you just say it directly? People would say to me, I got it on the inner that I should work with you. If you want to work with me, just say, I would like to work with you. But don't tell me, don't fictionalize that there's some inner part of you. If you don't have the self-esteem to say it directly, then tell me, I don't have the self-esteem to say this directly, but I would like to work with you. But don't make up this alternate self. But people were making up an alternate self, a hybrid inner being that spoke more authentically. That became their most intimate other. And it absolutely fascinated me, because this inner being became the person that became the part of them that began to direct everything, their relationships. Well, I want to be in a relationship, but my inner self needs more space. Not me, mind you, but my inner self. All right. All righty then. Okay. The inner self was the part of you that said, my inner self needs to. So I'd watch this inner self part develop. And over 10 years, I kind of was fascinated with how the inner self spoke versus the personality, versus the multiple levels of us and how we were explaining ourselves. We were dividing ourselves into a layer cake. That we kind of divided our power between, as if it was eau de toilette, cologne, and perfume. So the inner self had a certain chunk of power as we were emerging into understanding the power of choice in us. And we allocated to our inner self the authority to change our lives at a faster speed than our tribal self, but not quite the speed of the revelationary self, the actual authentic self we claim we were en route to discovering, our fully empowered self. So the inner self would be our energy self, and the inner self is the one that spoke the language of energy. It's your energy nature. The self you were seeking, your soul, is the one that speaks grace fluently. That would be what Teresa would call your interior castle. Now I'm going to hit a pause button here because this is a great, big, huge, big deal. So if you lose me, questions, maybe. Now, when I was writing, during what inspired me to write Invisible Acts of Power was, as I was observing this, I thought, you know what I think? I think we are wired organically to read each other. This is how I began to get to where I am today, which is I truly grasp, as far as I am able to grasp in my little bitty self, which has put on 10 pounds, in my little bitty self, and I will lose that. And that's the result of France, and I blame France. Is the profound evolution that's happening in this moment is that these magnificent mystical teachings, what is in one is in the whole. What I do to one, what you do to one, you do to all. These, as above, so below. As it is with the Father, so it is here. All is one. These profound teachings, these mystical truths that we've held in our head and have prevented them from incarnating into our heart and incarnating, actually melting into us as living, active principles, as living bio-spiritual, theological, ecological truths are melting into bio-spiritual, ecological truths. And as they melt into us, they're animating different perceptual systems of a more advanced nature. They're animating the next level of light around us. And so they're sensitizing. If what is in one is in the whole, I am now going to start sensing what is in one is in the whole. I can't have a perception in my head that does not activate my capacity to sense that truth. I can't have the truth that of the law of gravity in me and not have a coordinating sense in me that if I go near the edge, I automatically, all of you know, if you go near the edge of something, you're going to go like this. You don't have to tell yourself, jump from fear, you're near an edge. Your whole system will go, whoa! And then you realize, I was near the edge. As soon as a high truth incarnates into you, what is in one is in the whole. Every part of you, it gets the message. Upgrade, move up a level, another floor. And along with that, all your senses, you start seeing the whole universe, every one of us, everything. Everything changes shape from within. Everything now looks incredibly different. You see a truth. The illusion fades away. Oh my God. The idea that you are one is something you can argue with. An idea is not something that you relate to. It's something you talk about. It's something you think about. Let me give you an example. How many of you are parents? Okay. For those of you who are parents, is there any difference at all in your experience of when you thought about parent and then having a child? Any difference at all? Is there any difference at all from the thought to the experience? Tell me, is there? Worse. Okay, so the experience is visceral. Is it in every one of your cells? So would you say you moved a level? The whole world looks different now that one of your own is wandering in it. Would you say that's true? Where is that one of mine? Would you say that's true? So now when you look at the world, is it safe for my child? Whereas before it's like, Whereas now, the world's a little bit more personal because your own is wandering the street. Would you agree? You agree? Absolutely. That's the difference when a truth becomes personalized. You feel it, you sense it, it talks to you. You see the world and it talks. The holiness of it, its language animates in you. And when the language of a truth animates in you, your consciousness becomes so attuned with the power of that truth. Like, I don't exist in a field of energy, I exist in a field of grace. You begin to think this word energy, this is pretty useless. I'm going to toss it out, and I'm going to replace it with the word grace. That's high voltage. That's going to change everything. It's going to change absolutely everything. You will not be able to look at another person the same way again. Ever, ever, ever. You're going to see the world through grace and not energy. Energy is a word that's nice, but it's useless. It has no healing ability, nothing, zero. It is an empty mastacholi noodle. Now, back to intuition. So what I realized when I was writing Invisible Acts of Power was that, you know what? We are becoming, our wiring is animating to the point where we are naturally reading each other even when we don't realize we're reading each other. Now, this is a very important thing for you to get. You have to get this. You're doing readings all the time, and every now and again you become aware that you are doing readings. For example, you will, what is that called? What do we call it? When you sit around, have a coffee, and then you're looking at people. Do you call it people watching? All right, but when you're people watching, you're doing readings. You are saying, oh, look at that person looks like, and you're doing archetypal readings at the speed of light. Oh, look, there goes a geek. There goes a this, there goes a that. And you can't stop yourself. If I told you, I don't want you to do one labeling, don't you dare do an archetypal reading, you couldn't stop yourself. Because this is your first chakra and it's instinctive. You're going, you can't stop yourself. It is part of your survival mechanism. You have to size up who's on the same street with me, but you're also wired because you are in each other's field, and it's a communication system, and you're sensing, do I have a contract with this person? Is this familiar? Is this familiar territory? Your souls are talking in the same way pilots say hi to each other when they fly through the sky. You're sensing each other. It is an archetypal sensing system. It doesn't matter if you consciously don't say, well, hi, here's my business card. It's an archetypal acknowledgement. This is what we do because we're all one and we're interconnected. There is no way you do not sense in every single person the vulnerability they have in the moment that you do those readings. Because you're wired. When you walk down a street and you walk past, I now deliberately observe this, whether people deliberately look the other way when they walk past a homeless person and deliberately choose not to make eye contact with them because they can sense that person and they're doing a reading on them. They're doing a reading on them. And then they will tell themselves, oh, they probably have more money than I do, or why don't they get a job and do something respectful, or something like, as if people want to sit on the ground and ask for money. As if they decide, you know what I want to do when I grow up? I want to sit on the ground with a cardboard sign in front of me and beg humanity for a nickel. That's my ambition. But we sense that. We sense the vulnerability, and we're wired for this. And now that wiring in you is getting more attuned so that you are reading everybody. And in my opinion, that attunement is also what is making us more incredibly, this is the wiring of your soul. That's what's making us more bipolar, more depressed, more unable to function on the inside, more because we don't have the language for this. We don't recognize what's happening. We don't know how to attend to each other in spiritually intimate ways. This is soul intimacy. We don't have a way of responding to this kind of soul intimacy. We, thirdly, do not even realize we are magnets for psychic free radicals that collect around us. Because in this world that we now exist, we are now more energy than matter. We may be like 51% energetics. Remember this? We are moving to be, look at you. Your whole life, the moment you got up, I bet you weren't even out in your pajamas and you hooked up to the energy world to check your internet. I bet you hooked up to your energy communication system before you were even showered to see what was going on in your energy realm, to reach your energy world. Maybe many of you your occupation is in the energy realm. We are so in residence in the energy realm that today we have to schedule time in the physical. I'll put an hour for exercise. I have to move my form. I have to force it to get off the couch. And I reward it with a low soy cappuccino, double espresso, but no fat because I'm trying to move it. The way we are, we're so spoiled. Then we tell ourselves, we don't even call it walking anymore. We say we exercise. We have to give it a new vocabulary so we feel good about ourselves. We haul ourselves. Come on, get up. We have to actually get trainers to train ourselves to move again. Come on, let's go. Come on, you can do it. And then we reward ourselves because we've actually moved our body. What? It's the truth. It's pathetic, isn't it? Right. Remember when you were a kid, you just walked and you didn't come home and say, I walked, can I have a cookie? No, you never did that. But now we go in and say, I should have a biscotti. How far did you walk? I don't know. Check your monitor. Are you wired for walking? See, I walked. I'm all wired for it. Look at me. A bit fit, a wire, a this, a that, just to prove I actually walked. What? This is how insane we are. But this is how we have shifted and hold the physical in contempt. Let me just translate what this means. We hold the physical in contempt because what we do when we visit the physical, I think I'll go back in my body now. Oh my God, it's aging. And we can't get over that. Do you see lines? Oh my God, it's aging. Oh my God, what do we do about this? We have to go to somebody who can prevent aging. Got any vitamins? We have to, because we really think that the object of the spirit is to stop the decay of the physical. Get your spirit in shape. Do a little yoga so you don't die and you don't age, and you don't look like this machine you're in, is actually a vessel of life that every day gets older. And as you get older, you have to lie about your age. Don't you tell them how old you are. You have to lie. Any takers on your schizophrenia yet? Snap out of it. The contempt we have for the physical is unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. And then we pop out again and we get into the energy world where we kick into our computer. Let me see now. What fantasy world do I want? And we fantasy off. Fantasy relationships, fantasy porn, fantasy anything. And we just go off in la la land into fantasy anything. We don't even have to leave our houses anymore. We could just do whatever we want. We can create relationships in 20 seconds. We could be whoever we want. Let me see, I'll take a picture of this person, send. This is how we're living now. Relationships fill out a form. Let me see if I want to know you. Okay, this is the nutso-ness. And all the while, your energy system, all the while your wiring is getting wired to read your world more accurately, while a part of you is becoming more afraid of the world you're living in. I just need to point out this craziness of the world we're living in. Are you with me here? Huh? Well, your inner self is becoming more attuned to reading things clearly and with clarity, to not being afraid, to being more empowered, while your mental, emotional self is terrified. Okay? And while the mental self says, oh my God, I'm aging. Oh my God, I can't do, oh my God. While it's buying into all the survival fears, while the inner self is absolutely like, what's the matter with you? What is the matter with you? So this is part of the great collision. Does that help you out? Can you relate to that a little bit? That was a bit clearer? Okay. That's the name of the game. Okay. So when I was doing Invisible Acts of Power, I thought, I wonder what, spontaneous acts of service, that in fact, how many people immediately responded to their intuition to people and followed this theory I had, that they just knew someone needed help, or they just gut hunched it and thought, I'm just going to help that person. So I wrote a letter and I said, anybody ever have this experience? And I expected maybe 100 letters back. I got almost 1,400 in 8 days. And I read them all. And from that experience came the following. One, it is the most profound thing to read 1,400 letters from people who are sharing an experience that changed their lives. And that experience they can't wait to share. And it is an experience that I realized after hundreds of letters that this experience kept changing their life. And so for me, eventually I realized that these experiences qualified as scripture. They were not stories, they were scripture. They were a form of human scripture, of saying, I did this, but look at the transformation. That in fact, because they were responding in the moment to something that said, do this. They were following an order of an angel under grace, and another human life was transformed. And that's how grace works. Grace works in the moment. You don't get grace for next week. You get grace as you need it in the moment, just as you need it just in that moment. And when you follow it and you act on it, always lives are transformed or saved or healed in the moment. Always, always. Oh, there is no exception to this. There will never be an exception to this. That is the nature of grace. And it's very risky to ever say a sentence with the word always or never. And I easily do that with this one. And here's number 2 to this. All of you have heard your angels say, do this. And I'll bet you all of you have at least once hesitated and not done that. And if I asked you to write a list of all the good things you've ever done in your life before dinner, all the good things you've ever thought, all the good things you've ever done, all the good things you've ever inspired in others. And I want the list before dinner. And I mean in your whole life. I would hope you would say, is she crazy? And you'd just be like, and it would be so many you couldn't think. And it would be hard for you to even think, where do I start? How do I begin? Maybe a birthday. You'll start with the big. I did this birthday and you just, and then I had a kind of, you just could not ever fill this out. Thank you for that. Thank God you couldn't remember it all. But if I said, how about your regrets? Can you write a few regrets? You won't have problems with regrets. Because regrets never leave you, never, and that's part of your angel's job. Your angel never lets you forget when you didn't listen, so that you never do that again. Never. It's an act of mercy. Mercy's holy language. Put that down. We're going to talk about that. Mercy is a holy language word. But when you are told, do this now. So when I was writing this book, I thought, here's a story you've heard me tell, I'm sure you did, but it so impacted me. The man's going to commit suicide. He's going home. He's going to commit suicide. He's standing on a corner. And the reason it impacted me, he showed up in an audience when I was doing the book tour for Invisible Acts. And he said, this is me. He's standing on a corner. He's thinking, I'm going to go kill myself. Should I slip my wrist or OD on pills? Do I have enough pills? Should I take the pills and then slip my wrist, then take the pills? He's debating while standing on a street corner. And there's a car at the sign, and so he looks at the driver and goes like this, but she looks at him, and he said he flashed her such a beautiful smile. And because of that smile, he decided to live. It was just like that. She must have shot Grace, and it went right into his heart. Right into his heart. Now, you understand that, ladies, that maybe one of you was that woman. You have to get that. Did someone come here? Okay. You know what? Maybe when they open the front door, it's the wind tunnel from it. Okay. All right, got it. We figured it out. Okay. So here's the thing. I would read these, and I would think, wow. So then what I did was I thought, you know what? These are just so incredible. These are just like the stories in the scripture. I will be there. Call me and I will be there. I'll send my angels. Whether I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, or I was reading the Quran, or I was reading the Bible, or the whole Old Testament, or the New Testament, no matter where I went in the holy language, in the old world, in the Old Testament, and I have to take you back there this morning. We have to go there. No matter in these ancient teachings, it was the age when heaven said, these are the rules. If you call me, I'll be there. Just call upon me with faith. Holy language, we're going to go to this word shortly. Faith. With faith, call upon me and I'll be right there. I'll be right there. I'll be right there. Faith and trust, and I will be right there. And as I sat in my office, what I did every day as I was reading these letters is I I'd go in, and little by little, day by day, I was setting it up unknowingly until I finally got it that one day, that I was setting it up like a retreat. I turned off access to me. I turned off my phones. I lit candles, and I would go into these letters and then take out the Bible, the Quran, all my holy stuff, which stacks up to here and it's everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, here's a story just like this. Here's a story just like this. Here's a story just like this. Here's this man hit on a motorcycle waiting for death, and he says, okay, take me, Lord, forgive me, and or send a healing. And here he hears these footsteps in the snow. Blood's rolling in his eyes, and this woman picks up his head and says, shh, an ambulance is on its way. You'll be fine. And it was in Canada, and this ambulance comes around, and it was a dark road. The ambulance should have run him over. He was expecting it. And then he thinks this woman who's holding his head on her lap called for an ambulance in the middle of this north woods. And they said, there's no woman here, and there aren't any footprints. Yeah. Met him too. I mean, and I would read these, and I would be like, and it was then, as I sat in my office, and I put it down, and I said, you are bloody incredible. You are doing the same thing now you did 2,000 years ago. No matter what country. And as soon as I said that, this light goes, and I had a grand mal seizure. I was out cold in my office. And so when I woke up, and those things are rough, guys. They're not fun. So, and they're called the mystics disorder, right? Yeah, and and the wiring changes, and you get burnt. And I tell you, here's the blessing. They burned out my short-term memory. I have a really bad short-term memory, and it took a lot of my great vocabulary. I used to have the most exquisite vocabulary in the universe. And so now I have to have a dictionary, and in my house I have Post-it notes everywhere, because the smallest thing I will forget. So you have to put everything, I'm a stickler, you have to put everything back in my house where it is, because I won't remember. So I've paid this price for this. But I don't really care. But, and sometimes you'll see me wander. But I'll come back. All right. So what happened then was I knew, not immediately, but shortly after, that I was getting rewired. I knew it. And I could feel it. It was the damnedest thing, but I could feel it. But I also knew that I was kind of getting redirected. And then I was going to go down a different route. I could feel it. And there, I can't explain. It's a funny thing about mysticism. And I'm not sure how much you want to know about this kind of thing, because it's not really practical. But to some extent, I believe some part of it's happening to all of you, which is why I want to share it a little bit. In that, the thing about a mystical experience, no matter how slight or intense, is that it's not rational. Now, there's nothing rational about it. Nothing at all. And the second thing is that the way grace works, the way heaven works, is that deep in your gut, as frightened as you might be, and this is the signature of heaven, a jewel is placed there that says you're going to be fine. You're going to be all right. You have to trust this. So faith and trust go together here. So you know something profound has shifted in you. You don't know where it's going to take you, how bad it's going to get. And it might get really bad. And it did. I broke my forehead. I busted my nose. Oh, yeah. And then came Teresa. And then came Teresa of Avila. And as I sat on a chair like this one day, and I was teaching, and I'm going to teach on mysticism, and the room started to go dark, and I thought, oh, no, because then I thought I'd fall and break my neck, and I thought, you're going to do that? And as scared as I was, and I'm telling you, drop dead scared, as scared as I was, there was a part of me that said, you better friggin' catch me. And it didn't occur to me that heaven wouldn't. It didn't occur to me that heaven would not catch. It didn't even occur to me. How about that? Isn't that insane? It didn't even occur to me that heaven wouldn't catch me. Thank you. So, when I was that experience with Teresa, where I heard that voice, follow me. I don't know how I knew it was her, but it was her. And I had no particular allegiance to her, nothing. She wasn't my big saint. She wasn't my big saint. My big saint was St. Jude. I was hardly familiar with her work. And in that second that I said, okay, and then I said, don't let them see this. Please don't let them see this. But all my students were like this because they thought something happened. And David thought I was going to fall off the chair. And then, all of a sudden, I knew her work as if I'd been a scholar. It just went, whoosh. I knew her work as if I had been a doctoral student. And for that full weekend, I taught Teresa. And I was observing myself teaching her, hearing it for the first time, myself. I was teaching myself and observing it myself, listening myself to myself. Right? How crazy is that? How extraordinary is that? How wondrous is that? How wondrous is that? When I got home, I went up and erased the book I was writing, deleted every word. And I told my editor the next day I was writing a book with Teresa of Avila. And there was a pause. There was a pause. And so then Leslie said, you tell that nun the deadline's in 6 months. Isn't that great? Isn't that the best answer? And you know what? Then I sat in my living room and I looked at my house and I thought, what have I done? What have I done? I've just put a contract that I can't pay back. I don't have the money to pay back. I'll have to sell my house. I've just put my career on the line. I've just gone from being a medical intuitive to some crazy-ass mystic talking to a dead nun. What have I done? What have I done? And then I thought, no, this is real. This is real. This is more real to me. And then the mail came, and I got a bookmark. And the bookmark from a woman I'd never met her, from England. And it was from a Carmelite monastery, and Teresa was a Carmelite. And I thought, wow, it's from a Carmelite, but I turned it over. And on this bookmark was the prayer, with God all things are possible, Teresa of Avila. A direct message from her. And I thought, okay, girl, we're in. So that began that life. With God, all things are possible. Yeah. Yeah. So, with that in mind, what I want to now communicate to you is that you're wired the same way I am. I don't know that your lives will take the extreme because that's not your journey. But your journey is your journey. And your journey is to allow your wiring to speak to you. Is to recognize that your wiring is speaking to you. And to learn how to trust that, because that's the language of your soul. And so I wanted to start by, first of all, I asked you yesterday, what is your association with when you think of God? And when I have asked people in the past, and I hear this answer all the time, people will say God is love. Anybody? Any takers here? None? None of you will say that? You think that? Yeah. I'll tell you why I have a problem with that. And we'll start from there. And it's because what sends most people into therapy? Love. Issues of love. You don't know how to love. You're afraid of love. You wonder if you'll ever be loved. You don't think you're lovable. So how in the world, and why in the world, would you say God is love? When in fact you can't even relate to it as a human being. When you have something tactile to put your hands on, your mate, your spouse, your child. That's a preposterous way to see God, which is why most people can't relate to this off-planet anyway. So let's start with a word that might get you in the door. Faith. Now, here's the great challenge of our time. There is nothing in your outside world, nothing at all in the outside world that supports the word faith. Nothing. Which archetypally, symbolically is extraordinary. So I'm going to begin by saying the route to have a relationship with the sacred begins with having faith in yourself. Now, you may never have thought about that, but what you have thought of is the parallel track, which is self-esteem. And if someone had said self-empowerment was really the journey of faith, you would never have taken it. But because we talk about self-empowerment and self-esteem with a self, your ego fell for it. But in fact, it's a journey of developing faith in yourself. And unless you have faith in something physical, you can never, ever make the leap to something that is non-physical. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what don't you have faith in when it comes to yourself? Never mind what you have faith in. Name 3 things that you absolutely do not trust yourself. Faith and trust. You don't have faith in, but you wish you did. But you wish you did. Where do you doubt yourself? Now, this is what you call, you absolutely have faith that you will break, that you won't come through with something. So we'll go through the back end door of faith. It's like having faith in an addict. I absolutely know you're going to steal money out of my wallet if I leave the purse near you. That's shadow faith. You see what I mean? So I'm asking you to go through the door of faith in yourself, where you know, I'll say tomorrow I'm going to start going to the gym, and I have absolute faith I won't do it. Versus absolute faith I will. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the way we begin our experience with faith, and this is your thin little thread to God, is because if you don't have faith in yourself, you will, here we go, you will never have faith in someone else. Never. You will always be asking that person for some kind of proof. You'll always be waiting for that person to fail you. In order for that person not to fail you, you will always be using a little bit more of your strength to circle that person so they don't fail you. You'll be compensating for their weakness with your strength so they don't fail you. So you're not disappointed in them. Well, I'll make sure I'll do this for you. Because you know for a fact you have faith that they'll fail you. So rather than you be disappointed in them, you'll do it for them and then they don't fail you. Am I right or am I right?
That's fascinating.
It's accurate too.
Yes. Sort of like projection too, isn't it?
It's not projection, it's protection. So that you're not disappointed, so that you don't see their face, so that you don't have to deal with the truth that you have no faith in them whatsoever. And you have to admit it. And then it also keeps them dependent on you, which is exactly what you want. It's not a good scene. Why, do you have a relationship like that?
Somewhat.
Oh, that would be a yes. All righty. We'll end it there. All right. So write this down. What do you know as an example of shadow faith? So you know what faith is in yourself. That I know I can count on myself to not do this, even though I tell myself I want to do this. Or I wish I could, right? Write it down. Like, I wish I had faith in myself. If I said to myself, and here's another one. If someone says, can I trust you with this secret? And you say yes, do you know for a fact you're going to break your word? You know for a fact right then and there, you wish you had faith enough in yourself that you could trust yourself. I watched my brother say, don't tell me that because I'm not able to keep a secret yet. Now that, yeah, right. Because my brother draws the line and says, no. Don't tell me anything that's precious to you because it'll go right out the other end. And he said, keep it to yourself. If you need someone, go to a priest.
That's integrity.
But that's how integrous my brother is. He says, I value your friendship too much. Don't confide in me. Yeah. So this is where you have to say to yourself, what is it about me that I don't even have enough trust or faith in myself? So how could I have faith in anything or anyone? How can I expect them to have faith or trust in me? How can I have faith and trust in anyone if I don't even have faith and trust in myself? So put it down. Where do you fall short of this? Because faith is holy language. It's a tough go here. And this translates to, how can you have faith in any healer, in any healing, in any miracle, in the power of grace? You are filled with doubt, and doubt is poison. What? Not yet, but I want people are writing examples. Do we need a break? Do we need a break yet? Okay, pretty soon. Okay, I'm not going to let you break yet. Okay. 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 Now, and the next, name something you have had a struggle in faith with. Or has it meant something to you? Well, in this question, what I'm referring to is, let me focus it because that's a big question. So let me focus this. That when it comes to the non-physical world and the presence of God in your life, if you had to water down what it is you have doubt or faith, what do you name? Like, if I said, what do I have faith in? I have a deep and abiding faith that the divine is absolutely present and hears every prayer and every prayer is answered. I do not doubt that. I have experienced it and I know it and I do not doubt that. I couldn't teach it to you. I won't teach anything I don't believe. I won't. And if I didn't believe it, I would tell you, this is what I have doubts in. I do not doubt that, not 1 second of it. And so I have absolute faith and trust in how intimate heaven is. But I think for a lot of people, that is not something they have faith in. And for a lot of people, I don't know that that's even important for them, to have an intimacy with the sacred. I don't know what if that matters at all. So what I'm asking here is, what do you need to have faith in? What is important for you here? What matters to you? Yes. Yeah. Could we?
So I get that if you don't have faith in yourself, you can't have faith in other humans.
Is that microphone on? Yeah. Okay. You have to hold it, I think, close.
So it is possible, though, yes, to have more faith in the divine and the guidance than yourself, because I feel that's where I'm at. I don't always have faith in what I think, as from in a personality standpoint, but I have greater faith in my angels or the divinity. Okay,
yeah.
so that works. Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I think let me explain. I maybe want to describe that a little bit more. Put a little clarity on that. I think it's totally possible, and in fact, in many ways, a lovely way, to have a deep and abiding faith in the divine, and then and lean on that faith, knowing that your own judgment at times tends to be more fragile. Which is why you have faith. I mean, I know in my own way how oftentimes I get very reactive. I have a very reactive personality. And I get very reactive about how I wish things were. How I wish things were. How I wish the decisions were made in this world. How I just don't get why there's so much cruelty, why there's so much selfishness, how it makes me nuts. It makes me nuts, and I will own it. And I get really not nice. And my thoughts get hostile and ugly. And I know that doesn't help anything. It doesn't help anything at all. And when I see the selfish decisions made, I see heroes being criticized. I see people in cages. Oh my God. The nights I'm up praying, thinking, you got to save these kids. I mean, I don't know what you're going to do. Send angels with blowtorches, but get them out of there. And I think how I see things needs a lot of help because it's not helping. And if I had to make a decision in that moment, I know my decision is not going to be on target. So because I'm saturated in what the moment of history is telling me and not the clarity of evolution. And that's the difference between seeing, if I could compare it, seeing a moment in the personality of our human collectiveness versus our soul's collective journey versus our personality thrown together. It's the difference between looking at each of us through our personality that might be having a moment and then looking more deeply into our soul that's having a journey. So our soul is on a journey, but our personality might be having a moment. Are you with me here? And if you judge a human being by the moment, how cruel to the soul. And this is where that wisdom is, don't judge, do not judge. Because you're looking at the moment. And you must be able to see clearly through to the soul. And the skills that are emerging in us are soul skills. And if you were in a moment to say, be still here. And I love this teaching in Taoism. Don't get attached to a spectacle. Eruptions in the moment are spectacles. You know, you're frustrated in the moment, you're like, oh, and you kick a car. Because your engine's not starting when you need it to start. And if someone saw that, they'd think she's just a hysteric. But they wouldn't know that you have to get to the animal hospital because you're animals and this is the worst possible thing and it might cost you your dog's life. Of course you're hysterical, but you're not hysteric. But they're taking the moment. And this is part of your training. This is part of your soul training. You have a gear in you. You can take an elevator in you and say, I'm looking at this now through the illusion, and I'm looking at the personality. I've got to get out of this because I can't see clearly. I got to get out. And if you look through that lens, you'll satisfy what your ego wants to see, but you will not see clearly. And number two, you will create an anchor for yourself because you will have satisfied some part of your darker nature, but you will not have seen through the light. You'll allow yourself to do a judgment on someone that will make you feel better about yourself and less about them. But it will have cost you. It will have cost you because I said you could pull out sacred language. And sacred language, holy language gets you out. A word like mercy, I said to put the word down. If you said, whoa, 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 drop me some mercy fast. I need mercy and I need compassion and I need it now. I need it now. And instantly your heart goes whoosh, and it changes the lens of what you're looking at. Even the most horrific person, even in the most horrific circumstance, even the most horrific, in that moment you might see through to their childhood. You might see a glimpse of something that you can't see through your eyes, but your soul can see it. Your soul can see it. Your eyes can't, but your soul can. And these are these micro mystical experiences that you're wired to have. And your soul gets it. And you see soul to soul. And this is the kind of knowledge, that holy knowledge, that calls upon you to respond to that person with prayer. And it doesn't mean that you look at that person and say, well, it's okay that these things happen. That doesn't make any cruel things okay. But a judgment only makes cruel things continue. But a prayer, somehow, in some way, helps that soul to maybe heal and never do it again. Or some person somewhere else on the planet who's about to do the same thing won't. Because the prayer is delivered to them. So someone somewhere else who's about to do the very same thing, slap some woman in the face or beat some child up, will suddenly have their hand think, no, I can't, because you looked at this person and instead of hating them, thought, dear God, what drives a person to be so empty and wounded, and for all of those who are standing in that man's shoes. And you say a prayer of healing. Because hatred put that, and hatred does not heal. And it is very difficult to pull out holy language and say, mercy on all who are standing in that pain. Mercy. And you pull out holy language. And that's the power of it. Am I making sense to you here? Your soul can see what your eyes cannot. And it is a choice. It is a choice every moment of your life to say, I have to see this through the eyes of my soul. And it is a choice. And sometimes you're never going to want to make that choice, I promise you. I promise you. You are not going to want to, you'll be standing in self-righteousness and you'll think, oh no, there's no way I want to see this through my, no way, I'm liking it right here. Because I am so right. And I'm liking the way I feel. But those feelings of being self-righteous and right, if you'll notice, last for 20 seconds. They're very short-lived. They're kind of like a bad drug. And what happens is afterwards you feel so isolated. And that's the consequence of a false feeling. It's not genuine. It's never genuine. Whereas no matter how hard it is, when you really force yourself to say, I got to get to soul. I've got to get to soul. As hard as that is, the feeling of well done never leaves you. Grace never leaves you. Ever. Which is why the holy language is so powerful. What is mercy? What is that grace? I mean, what does it mean to have mercy? To withhold judgment, to say, have mercy on that, or to put mercy in my heart. Put mercy in my heart. I do not want to see a human being through the lens that I think I'm better than them, or I know better, or don't put me there. Do not put me there. Do not put me there. Ever. Don't put me a step above. Do not put me in a place where I need to be better than someone. Get that out of me, like a bad cavity. You keep me eye level with every human being. Humble up is the greatest grace of all. Humble up. The moment you need to be better is the moment you're in trouble. Big trouble, not little. Okay, so the eyes of the soul, big, and the vocabulary of the soul. Okay, so I need to give you a break. The coffee's arrived, so take 20 minutes, and don't wander the streets. Okay, so I've done a new drawing. I've never put this up, but I had a thought. I've never taught this. I've never had this. So I've had a thought, and so follow me here. If I lose you, I'm going to lose me, but here we go. Now I find myself a bit of a challenge because my mind works like a hologram these days. And I have so much that I want to communicate, so I almost times just want to put myself on slow, but it's too late. Okay. Now here's where I want to go. I want to make the point that the perceptual system that has emerged in you and is blooming, the perceptual system of your soul, is fundamentally a mystical system. Mystical. It belongs to this realm, the high mystical. Number two, the mystical perceptual system, prior to this time that we're living in, you would have gone to a monastery. You wouldn't have been let loose on the streets. It would have been a calling. And you would have sought a quiet life because your inner world would have developed more than your external world. And that would have been by choice. Today, we are choosing our inner world to develop, and we call it personal development. We call it inner development. We call it individuation. But the language we're using is kind of a guise because it is opening the path to the soul, even though the language that people are starting out with is not holy oftentimes. But as a result of that, as a result of having stripped down holy language from this journey, my hunch, and I don't think I'm off that much, is that once the journey gets into the inner self, because you don't have and you are not armed with holy language, the way the mystics have always been armed, people are losing their way, going into the soul unescorted. I'll explain all this. So people are going into the soul unescorted. And I think rather than recognizing that they are in a spiritual crisis, it's being treated as a psychological one. Because the holy language of recognizing I am in a spiritual crisis, not even understanding what a spiritual crisis is. What is a spiritual crisis? What does it look like? People don't even know that the spirit in them can have a crisis, or that they can say things or think a certain way or act in a certain way that actually violates the soul. That the soul within them is not this non-physical thing that somehow or other maybe goes on after death somewhere out there. That in fact your soul is the engine of all that you create. It is the active agent in creation. It is the part of you that runs the mystical laws, thought into form, action to reaction, the law of sensing, the law of balance within you, the law of conscience, the law of sense, the metronome of what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil, the capacity in you that says, this is, I sense something. The capacity in you to hear your angels say, get out of here, this is trouble, get out. That comes from your soul. that is not it's not neurological wiring. That our neurology responds to this, of course. It is one system. But everything begins with light and incarnates into matter. Everything starts out in the dimension of timelessness and incarnates into time. This dotted area, these little dotted things, this represents this is vertical intelligence or timelessness, TL for short, going into the realm of chronos or time, dense matter, your first, second, and third chakra. The way of thought incarnates into us. Just follow a single idea, the smallest idea, the tiniest idea. Go to your room. I have the thought. Go to your room. And it incarnates into, okay, I have to and then you have to make the decision what time you're going to go to your room, how to get there, when you're going to leave, when it feels right, ending conversations that you're in, and then you have to physically move your body. And with every level of decision that supports the thought, the instruction, go to your room. Got to get in my room. With the instruction, all the other thoughts that have to go along with scaffolding to support that one decision, every one of them, to put it in slow motion, is putting time, meat, incarnating that decision into physical form, into the actual physical action, which is this level, the first floor, the physical act of walking to the elevator and going to the room. Up until that time, the thought has to incarnate into form. As you incarnate, you are organizing a thought and putting form to it. You are putting it into time and matter. Do you get it? Do you understand what I'm saying? You are densifying it. You're taking a thought, an energy, and you are using the laws of the universe to pull the elements together, to densify, and to wrap it up in time and space, to make it happen. A woman gets pregnant, and it's 9 months until the baby comes out. It takes this period to densify, gestate, and actually produce the life. And during that 9 months, you could think it goes from this soul and a timelessness to move through the system and densify into physical matter. I need you to think that every idea is like a pregnancy that has to go through going into the world of densification into matter and creating time. And it goes through these chakras. And as it goes through inspiration, which is, think about, you can have 1 billion ideas. And it's easy to have 1 billion ideas because there's no matter to them. There's no money, there's no matter, there's no weight to them. So you could have 1,000 ideas up here because they're all light, and light weighs nothing. You haven't begun to densify any of them. They haven't impregnated. You haven't started this process of gestation. The reverse is true. That what becoming conscious is about is your capacity to perceive faster and faster than this speed. This speed is hour by hour by hour. This is tribal speed. This is the speed at which the collective mind sees and experiences everything. The tribe says, this can't be healed, okay? The tribe, this is cologne, this is toilet water, this is cologne, and this is perfume. Same fragrance, different intensity. Okay? One drop goes a long way. Need a couple of sprays, you have to bathe in this. Okay? So it takes an ocean of this to do what one drop of this can do. The mustard seed and the mountain. Mustard seed, mountain. Okay. Now, in a tribal thought, when you're attached to a tribal thought is religion. This is the tribal God. Okay, so a tribal thought. Only Catholics go to heaven. You can't eat this, or you will just do that. Your ears will fall off, or God knows what. This is tribal religion. What is religion? Religion is the power of God squeezed into stories that allow human beings to go up to that power and not be burned alive. Not be burned alive. Human beings needed to know, how does the cosmos work? From the time of forever, when they were cave dwellings, and this is what I actually believe. This era of timelessness, this was a time when I think, like in ancient Greek and time of Lucretius, the time of Plato, and Lucretius was before Plato, the time of Aristotle, the time of the Egyptians. We think, how did they build these things, and how did they? I suspect they understood the laws of energy better than we did. I suspect we have become so densified. We're so thick. We're so matterized. We're like concrete creatures. But I think maybe there was a time way back then, during the era of law, where they were learning the laws. Look, this is how the laws of the universe work. They may have been visitations by other life forms, who knows, before they became so, I don't know, caught up in their stories. But I think when they were learning the laws of energy over matter, when there was a relationship with the universe that was more awestruck about that they maybe understood how to move matter with energy. Before they made themselves gods, before they thought that they would be that their task was to dominate nature, they revered nature. Revere is sacred language. What it is to have reverence for the world. We no longer use that word. You never hear anyone talk about having reverence for nature at all. And that is a vocabulary that goes up here. We don't have reverence. I never hear anyone talk about having reverence for their own life. Ever. Never. holding their own life in a sense of the sacred. So this is a really, really significant thing to understand, that I think way back then, people understood how to maneuver energy collectively over matter. So I think they built these monoliths this way. I don't think they had 10 million slaves hauling these big stones from places far beyond. And I could be all wrong, but I think maybe there was an Atlantis. I think maybe these places of mythic lore, somehow there were centers of, let's say, power, from which, like the centers of teaching of Plato, like the centers of teaching with Aristotle, like these great mystery schools, from which came these teachings that of the mystery schools, where they taught about what you need to know about your soul before you go in the world, that you need to know rhetorica, dialectics, you need to know music, you need to know sacred geometry, you need to know music, you need to know the sacred architecture of the heavens, astronomy. They called these the arts that liberated the soul so you could go in the world. You needed to know the fundamental teachings, which eventually became the liberal arts. The liberal arts. You needed to know these because they were all laws, the laws of sacred geometry, the ley lines, the organization of the stars. You needed to know the laws of music. You needed to know the laws of mathematics. You needed to know the laws, and as they applied to you, these laws worked in you and around you. Now, I'm going to fast forward to the mystical era. What made a mystic is that these laws are revealed to a mystic. Somehow or other, they live within. The difference between religion and the inner journey, the calling, is that there's a tradition in monasteries, whether east or west, for the last thousands of years, of people that found a way or had the experience of feeling that the world behind their eye was more real than the world in front of you. This was the experience of Buddha. This is the experience of Jesus, Confucius, all the great teachers, all the great mystics somehow reached a place where there was a Rubicon inside of them that they crossed. And they would come back and they would say, you know what, there's something more real in the invisible world than the visible. But the journey to get there is going to be arduous. It's going to be rigorous, because your 5 physical senses have grown so comfortable in the physical world. And in particular, the need we have for law. The laws of the physical world are our first laws that we cling to, and we have to forego those laws in order for the laws of the soul to take over. Now that's just a mouthful that I've just given you, and it's a great, big, huge, big deal. And this is where all your suffering and pain comes from. The laws of the physical world, that there is justice, fairness, that the world revolves around you, that this is a rational world, that somehow God is a judge in a courtroom, that you are entitled to anything, that you are entitled to anything at all, that somehow you were born for something special. All of this is a lie, a myth, nonsense. But you're driven by it. It keeps you up late at night. I don't deserve this. Look what all, I've done this and I've done that, and because I've done that, I deserve this. Those words, that vocabulary, which belongs in the first column, deserve, unfair, justice, this. Those words, that vocabulary, to me, is the fodder of cancer. Because those words will densify you. They will lock you in to experiences that you simply can't let go of. You simply can't let go of them.
Could you repeat the 4 words?
Entitled, there's more than 4, but I just used them. Deserve, blame, entitled, unfair, justice, this is unjust. This is the vocabulary. When I said people didn't have the vocabulary to heal, I think I said that 2 days ago. This is the vocabulary people use constantly in therapy. Wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair. It shouldn't have happened to me. Why not? Who do you think you are that things shouldn't happen to you? Who do you think you are? Tell me who you think you are that it shouldn't happen to you. And then we'll get on with it. That you didn't want it to happen to you, I got that. That you wish it hadn't happened to you, okay, I'll listen to that. But don't tell me it's not fair. Fairness has nothing to do with this life. Nothing. That you want it to be fair, that's okay, but that's too bad. You got yourself hooked into an anchor that simply is going to cause you pain. That's a wish list. I wish things were fair too, and I wish I hadn't gained 10 pounds in France, but there it is. I got to stay out of that country. Okay. So, are you with me here? So those words and that thinking densifies you. It puts you at this level. It causes your perceptions to slow down. Now, I don't know how to communicate this to you, but it's the difference between your capacity. Oh my God, help me to explain this. Help me to explain what I can see so clearly. Have you ever wanted to explain something of great importance to someone, and you realized, not yet, or I can't. I'm trying to find the words, and it's just too big, and I can't find the words. But I feel like yeah. And forgive me, but this is brand new, and I need to communicate that. Have you ever understood something much better than someone close to you, and you want to communicate that to somebody, and you realize they don't want to understand it? Because if they did understand it, what would happen? What would happen if they understood it? They would have to change. And they would have to change faster. Come up, look at this. They would have to change at this speed instead of this. So let's say this is 1 month at a time. So this would be 1 day at a time. This would be hour. This would be minute. And this is second. And this is instant. Okay? So let's do it this way. So that every time you get clarity, you look at the same thing, but you get it that much faster. Now, this is how time becomes relative. So every time something becomes clear in you, your perception picks up that much faster. So now what takes someone else a month to get, you get in a second. And you're living at that level, that floor, and they're down here. Now, decades and decades ago, in order to withstand that type of consciousness, you lived in a monastery. And you had a spiritual director. And you would say to your spiritual director, I'm experiencing this process. And they helped you build a titanium soul and backbone. Because what were you perceiving here? You knew that you were going to perceive yourself with great clarity. You're not looking at someone else like your husband. It's yourself that you start looking at. Like, what's with me? How come I need to control him? What's going on with me? That eventually the journey is about what's really true here. What's really going on here? What's this world really comprised of? What's this journey of life really about? What is my role here truly in life? It's not to take, but to give. Well, that's going to change a lot of things. What if, in fact, the reason I don't get along with these people is because I actually am not loving very adequately because I'm afraid to love, because if I loved anymore, they might leave me, and I won't empower them that way. And you have to look at the fact that you don't know how to love very well. And it's not them, it's you. It's you. And you start seeing yourself very clearly, more and more accurately. And then you start realizing with great perception, in a second, you sense what's going on in another person. It used to take you a month to get to know them, to see what you can now in a second. Because your perception becomes that clear. But you can't talk about it because they're not ready for that level of second-to-second intimacy. At all. You're not allowed to go up to someone and say, you know what I know about you? You have to mature your soul here. You have to mature your soul. You also have a sense of what's going on in someone and what's going on in yourself. And that level of clarity calls you to a different level of choice in the world and a different level of response to people. You're not allowed anymore to judge them the way this world would, which is by they're kicking the car because that's what you see in the moment. You have tools of sight that are developing, the holy skills of your soul, and they are holy. And you have to think of yourself, not by profession as a healer, but because your soul has access to grace. And you know the power of prayer, and you know that's where you have to live. Am I making sense here? And what you also know, what you learn, what I realized, is as this little, lever in us shifts and takes us into the realm of that mystical timelessness. The way we live with that is that you have to become increasingly invisible. You have to become increasingly humble and increasingly invisible. This is the world where you think you need to tell everybody what you're up to all the time. You are unbelievably boring in this world. You need attention, oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, there's just too much of you. This is the journey to becoming invisible, because it's the invisible that are given those instructions. Go take care of that person. Where your life becomes so incredible that you can wander the world with the most incredible army, a legion of angels behind you. And you know to keep your mouth shut. And you just go about doing work. And you go home. And you watch Rachel Maddow. You're not serious. Okay, so, do you have any questions about this? Okay, what? Lab. Where are you? Lab and gold. Lead, laboratory, gold. So I'm going to explain. All right, I'll describe those three. How are we doing on? Oh, good. Plenty.
15 minutes.
We're good. No. What? Whatever. I don't care. Okay. Now. Yeah, we don't care about time. Okay, let me describe this. Now, all of you have been with me for the three columns, have you not? You all know these. So let me just remind you that these really are your three columns of consciousness, your three chakras. And let me just put them in your head again, that your first, second, and third chakras are really connected to your physical life. They're really dense. They're really, okay? And they like a dense vocabulary. So because the emphasis on this workshop is holy language, it is language. And our chakra system, our chakras have a vocabulary. And they each have a preference. So if you hit the heart vocabulary, it's going to start speaking love or wrath or hatred. This is this, or passion. That's what this part talks. And if I hit your second chakra, it's going to hit cravings. What do you crave? It'll tell me what you crave. And it speaks the vocabulary of craving. The stuff you have to have. That's the vocabulary. And if I talked only to this chakra, it would be the most irrational part of you. It would not be rational. It would be very irrational, be very stuff-oriented. If I hit this, 3, the part of you, and I'd say, I'm not interested in these. I want this one. I want that one. You would talk to me, and it's important to understand this. The vocabulary in there only talks about what you think you're entitled to. What you think you're entitled to. And believe you me, you got a stuffed third chakra. You don't even know what you think you're entitled to, but it's entitled. And this is the one that holds your idea of God. That one right there. So we're going to have a chat with that one. Because each of you has a micro-theology in which you think God owes you. No, it's the truth. You just haven't, no one's ever put it that way. But there's so often what I realized, and it took me a while to crack through this little code. But what is it? I have encountered for years and years and years people who are that get up angry. They're just angry. They can't release anger. They get angry that something happens. And they just can't get over anger. And they have this sense that something shouldn't have happened. Do any of you have any residue like that in your life? 2 people, 3, 4, a few. All right, I'm going to ask you again. Anybody? Any anger? Okay. Who are you angry at? Me. Okay, you, but go ahead. Who else do you think you're angry at? The system. The system. Cosmic?
No, the 3D system.
3D system. Okay. Okay. Now, why do you think you can't let it go? Joanne, I need to have you have a.
My anger is with what I think should be and isn't. And I believe that people who are qualified to be in a certain place should have a certain level of integrity. And when they don't and they misuse...
Yeah, but that's not answering why you can't let it go.
Oh,
That's what I'm interested
Because
in.
I
know
I'm
why
not-
you're angry, and then
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
care about. Why can't you let it go?
I'm learning to say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do, because I'm realizing there's not consciousness of... I mean, they might be conscious of what they're doing, but they don't have the consciousness to understand it. I don't know what I'm trying to say quite, but maybe you get it.
Okay, all right. Why can't you let your anger go, whoever's angry here? Yeah.
If I let go, who am I?
If you let go, who are you? All right, how many can relate to that? If you let go of your anger, who are you? Okay. So anger is part of your identity.
Yeah.
And who knows you as an angry person?
Nobody.
I don't get that.
I know, but I just put it really low, and I wear shame instead.
I'm sorry?
I wear shame. I put the shame coat.
Oh, shame.
Coat.
Oh,
over my anger.
same coat.
Shame.
Shame coat.
Over
Okay.
my anger.
Oh, I see. That's very good.
So I have a big balloon. There's anger. There's shame. If I let go, who am I?
Okay.
Who's there?
Who's there?
Who's there?
So do you talk to yourself in an angry voice all the time?
Sometimes, a lot. I
Okay.
criticize myself. Yeah, who's there?
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. Good. Yes.
Too fresh.
I'm sorry. That.
Too fresh. My
Oh, your anger's brand new.
yes.
Okay. But who are you angry at?
An ex-spouse.
Okay, an ex-spouse. Okay, and are you going to stay angry a long time?
No, that's why I'm here. You're helping me move forward.
Okay, good. Okay. Good girl. Okay. If you follow anger through, and you need to be angry a long time, we'll be your holy witness this weekend. I need to honor that. It's a brand new wound. But eventually, when anger starts to solidify in you, like a bad blood clot, okay, it's because there is an anger at God. There's an anger at God. Like, how did you do this to me? How could this happen to me? And if you follow that thread just a little bit more, the risk with this one is I'm not playing anymore. I'm not going to live my life fully anymore. That's it. Now, I have to describe this really. You know how a cupboard has a secret door? So the secret door in this cupboard is that you want to be that angry. You want to be that angry in order not to play anymore, because it gives you an excuse not to go for your highest potential. So you want to be that angry because it gives you an excuse not to try anymore, not to go on, to kick back. You're still in the green period, so that's okay. Yeah, right. No, you're not there yet. You're not there yet. I'm giving that a thought. Yet, you know, where do you live? Michigan. Okay, so let's say you're on a train from Michigan to Boston. Okay, so this is a thought that you're going to encounter in Pennsylvania, but you're only in Ohio. So you're good. Okay, so this anger, this is part of the archetypal journey, where when things that happen to us that aren't planned and yet They are classic to phoenix falling into the ashes. When we have a into the ash experience and part of our life crumbles into ashes. The thing about that archetype is that we know, because this is the nature of the archetype, that we are going to rise from these ashes. We know it, because it's a phoenix. And this is how God works. This is law. Even if God hated us, God is bound by the law of the phoenix, and we will rise. We will rise. We have to work to not rise. We have to sabotage our own phoenix, because we will rise. It is the law. Just like the law of the planets and the orbits and the tide and winter coming after, spring coming after winter, we will rise after every phoenix. And the dark night will end with the light. It is the law. This is why you have to understand the laws. God is in the laws. God is the law. That's the promise of the law. I will send you joy after sorrow. I promise. I promise. Keep the door open. Keep the door open. Joy is en route. After every death is a resurrection. After every loss of life, I promise you I will send you life. I promise you. This is my promise. It is, and I will never break it. This is the way. You will mourn and you will cry. But this is, life regenerates. It regenerates, I promise you. And there is, you will all see each other again. It will regenerate, I promise you. This is the structure. I can't keep you all on the planet forever. But you will see each other again. There is no end. There is no end. It will never end. In this incomprehensible truth. But it is what it is. And we can sabotage that phoenix. We can say, I'm not standing up in this ash pile. I'm going to sit here and make an ash of myself for the rest of my life. That was cute. But that would be our choice. That would be our choice. If you understand the laws. Now here is this emerging of the soul. Is all about recognizing that I have the choice to see my life through the mystical lens. To recognize I'm in a phoenix moment. I'm in a mystical experience of this. Versus this way. Okay. Okay. All right. Can I just go a little bit further? Are you all right? Yes. Okay. What I need to point out here is in this world, this is the world, the physical world, where if this were before World War II, if this was before the nuclear age, and you were turning inward and wondering about your inner life, there'd be a good chance you would not have another life. That you would not go to be physicians, or you would not go to be parents, or you would not. It would be an overwhelming task to do both. To tamper with your inner life and change your outer life. It required attention on both. When a person said, "For what reason have I been born?" What they were asking of God is, take away everything in front of me that is extra baggage. so that I can hear you. Now today, people ask that question because they're bored with their life or they're frustrated or they're unhappy. They ask it in this whimsical place like, I'm not satisfied. My ego can't have enough. I need more, 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 more. I need to be noticed, noticed. The narcissism is on overload. And still they want more. For what reason? I'm sure I was born for something special. So it's got to be more, 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 more. You don't get that it is a prayer. And heaven doesn't care that you don't get that. It's going to get answered as a prayer. But it has set people off on this mystical path while being in ordinary life. While being in ordinary life. And the mystical path has adapted to modern day. You no longer get visited by gargoyles or night or visions or angels that wake you up at the foot of the bed, and it's not going to happen that way anymore. But, make no mistake, all of you are having some kind of mystical awakening that is reshaping your life to be unlike lives lived before World War II. All of you are having the higher parts of your chakra systems, awakening to a cosmic consciousness. All of you are having an opening in your heart to what I would call the heart of the sacred, to a sense of the planetary community fitting into your heart. Whereas prior to World War II, the heart only lived in the community you lived in. But now your heart is being stretched like taffy to include people of all races and people of multiple countries. And you have to know how to manage that heart that size. And you can't do that without prayer, because that's just too much. And how much of what's being carried in your heart are the wounds of other people? And without holy language, you can't recognize, is the sorrow I'm carrying mine or others? I can't. You have to learn how to read your soul. You have to learn what is being channeled through you, and you have to start thinking of yourself as a channel. Not these silly gibberish things, but to really understand what it is to be a high-functioning mystic out of a monastery in the 21st century, while also being an ordinary mortal. Because this is the new theology. This is the new calling. You have to understand what it means to be, we're no longer going to claim religion, we claim each other. We are the new religion. We are a bio-spiritual, ecological, holy community of life. And all life breathes together. And we take care of each other this way. And everything on this planet. And we heal together. Okay, lunchtime.